Hello again. Here's the third podcast of the Bridge the Generations, talking about health, AI, and general concerns. And I'm definitely excited to report a athletic phenomenon this morning where I've been having a lot of heel pain, probably a heel spur, maybe just plantar fasciitis, which is very common. A lot of people have,
When did it start?
oh, 3 months ago minimum. And
Uh,
this is one of those pains that it's kind of uh, really not going away. We always say it's too much to live with and not enough to die for. So you kind of are so annoyed by it because sometimes you can't walk at all. Sometimes it's okay. And obviously, I'm restricted in everything. I mean, I can't really walk 18 holes of golf, maybe nine, only with pain at the end. And I can't run. So anyway, I injected it with the stem cells, and I'm using a red laser and some acupuncture. It's slowly getting better. There's some improvements, but this morning I just said, screw it, I am going to go run. And sure enough, after about 10 minutes of running, the pain subsided, and through the day it's improving. And that kind of points that it's not a serious injury, and it could be even something spinal nervous system injury, maybe an old memory of something in the brain. So pain is very funny that way. Obviously, I do need an X-ray, but I am not getting it. I'm dreading to get it. In any case, this idea of just trying to work it out, after 3 months, you can do that. If you have a fresh injury, don't do that. But after 3 months, you can try. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to see if I can run it out. And also bike riding, I noticed works a lot. So there's a lot of muscles involved in the leg.
mhm.
So you can massage your soleus. That's a very important thing.
So do you think it's like you don't think it's like a fracture or anything? So like running on it would be bad. You can get X-ray, make sure there's no fracture, stress fracture type
It's
thing.
possible there is a hairline fracture, but it's uncommon in the heel bones in the calcaneus. It's very uncommon.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Again, I would need to have an X-ray on that, and a lot of times you can't see hairline fractures anyways. I mean, look, there's no swelling, there's no redness, so it could be gout too, but you don't get that in the heel. There's no obvious injury. This is a very typical plantar fasciitis kind of heel pain under the back of the foot that just persistent.
Hmm.
And it's not a level 10, it's like a level 5, right? So it's very
Right.
annoying. Any case, whatever it is, there's no treatment for it, period. The only treatment is what I'm doing is stem cells, red light laser, which is very interesting. It's really fun to use, actually. I am going to,
What
keep
what
using.
what is the red light laser? Do you have it with you?
Yeah, it's in the back.
Back, and he's got the laser here. What is this? Oh my
So
gosh.
it's a monster. So, I mean, obviously it has a big head here, but for the, joints and foot, we only use the small head. And I can't really demonstrate it because, you're not supposed to use it is a pretty strong laser, but basically all you do is just, put the laser onto the joint. uh,
What? Okay,
10
so
minutes.
that's so funny. I was expecting like a small, like little, like handgun, like a thermo gun or something.
No,
So what is,
it's a pretty serious apparatus, and definitely it's a very
is this
expensive.
something you use for on your patients? Tilt your camera back up.
So we're definitely starting to use it on patients. It's not a new thing. It's been around. I'm basically acquiring this from my chiropractor neighbor.
Okay, and then what is the science like? What does it do?
That's very interesting. There isn't a whole lot of science behind it, but obviously it reduces inflammation. That's what red light does. It has an effect on the nerves. You can do a lot of studies. There isn't a lot of hard studies on it, but I have to admit that I haven't had time to really research and dive deep into it. But the bottom line is that red light, it penetrates deep. You can see that, if you shine a light through your like a white light through your finger or
Mm-hmm.
something, you can see the red light goes through, right?
Mm-hmm.
The blue light doesn't, and
Oh yeah.
because it's scattering. And we already do use, deep infrared in Chinese medicine. We just don't use this strong red laser. Also, probably it activates stem cells, which then will reduce scar tissue. So that's, always what we say, the proof's in the pudding. You use it and it works or it doesn't. So the next thing may be what's called PMF, that's pulsed electromagnetic force. It's actually like an ultrasound kind of a thing, and that has tremendous effects on your own stem cells. So there's, definitely things you can do before you resort to the last resort of surgery, which, really doesn't do much for heel spurs anyways. It's very common that people get spurs. I have one on my wrist here. It's
So
basic.
what is a spur?
Yeah, so the muscle tissue turns into a tendon tissue, tendinous tissue, and then that turns into a very hard bone, right? So it's a continuous, um, uh, basically a way of changing tissue. And because think about it, I mean, you can't just attach a muscle onto a bone, onto a hard structure. What,
Right.
you're going to bolt it on? No.
Yeah.
So you have to make a continuous transition between muscle tissue, tendons, and bone. And so that's why tendons heal so slowly, because they're such hard tissue.
Right.
It's not, there's no innervation in it, and it's a very, very rigid structure, very high in collagenous supportive tissue. And then, eventually it's going to have to attach to the bone and turns into bone, right? And that's the point where it starts developing spur. So the spur is an outgrowth of the bone. I mean, the actual attachment site. And basically, when you walk on it or you do something with it, it's causing all kinds of pain and issues. So a lot of times also people refer to osteophytes. So when you have a bad joint, for example, a knee, rubbing on each other, both ends, they cause these extensions of the bone. So that's a little different. It's basically also an extension of the bone. It's a growth on the bone, and it's irritating the surrounding tissue and surrounding nerve cells. And that's usually why people have pain in their knee. That's usually why
Yeah, that makes
they
sense.
ended up getting surgery. You can scrape that away, but it will all come back all the time. It will all come back. And it's just a phenomenon that the body can't get rid of those things. That's all part of aging. And you just have to try the best and avoid basically joint degeneration. And you do that with inflammation control. You do that with proper exercise. So, I mean, hips are made to last. They are. I mean, the reason why people get hip replacements is because they've been grinding that femur into the joint all their life. And weightlifters, for example, doing these 300, 400 pounds, pushing exercises with their legs. I mean, that joint is not, none of the joints in the body are made to do this, none of them. they're all suspended. They're all loosely suspended. And that's why you're doing Qigong and you're doing light movements. The human body is not made for impact and strength. It's not. It's only made to absorb impact. And you know, I had this guy in here. You know, he terrible back, and he re-injured it. I'm like, why? Yeah, well, I shouldn't have gone back to work. They make us carry these 90-pound cement bags. Oh, we do it all day long, right? Okay, so you can do that if you're, you know, a lumberjack type, you know, maybe 25, 30, but at 35, you're going to start noticing that, you know, your body is not made to carry 90-pound bags every single day. We're made as hunters and gatherers. That's how we're made.
Do
You know,
you think it's throwing a spear? Yeah, like all the primitive stuff. Well, I was
we have
sorry.
a clavicle. We're the only species that really has that clavicle.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna ask, like, do you think it's possible? Don't you think it's possible though to be able to like work yourself up in a way where you don't get injured to be able to carry 9-pound bags every day? I mean, you have to carry back
Yeah, it's possible.
meat, right? Let's say you killed a deer, right? You like make the rib cage into a backpack and you carry all that meat back to your camp. Like how
But
if
I
you
mean,
carry
but
it somehow, right?
humans were smart, weren't they? I mean, they were putting that deer onto a long stick and then carrying with two people, right? I mean, you don't carry a deer or a large animal by yourself. It's not a good idea.
So you think there's a limit. You don't think that
Oh,
someone could
there is
evolve. You
yeah,
don't
the
think you
human body is not designed for heavy lifting because our spines just cannot handle it. It's not made for that. Lifting is the worst thing for any human body. And you know, that's why all older men, especially men, have screwed up low backs, and that's why you crack them and end up with debilitating disc injuries. It's because you do not know how to use your body properly. If you use your core, if you do your qigong exercises, you will be able to combat these injuries because you know how to balance your weight properly. So most people live in front, right? Lift in front. So they lift like this, right? And that's
okay.
devastating. I mean, you know how to do a deadlift, right, in the gym.
Hmm.
So you move that bar very close to your body, right?
Well,
So,
yeah, deadlift, you're not going above your waist. You're just standing up, pulling it to your waist.
well, okay, whatever. I
You're
mean,
going above, that's like a clean. You're pulling all the way up to here, it's a clean.
in any case, when your knees go up, then they go up, right? Because you're bending down and then you go up, right? Straightening your legs, right?
Yeah, so you're there's like two spots to it. The first is like a leg press, and then after that you just hinge your hips.
I mean, get away from the camera here. But basically, you know, you're going down. You can't see that, but you keep that bar as close to your body and your legs as you can, right?
Yeah, on the way up. Yeah, on your shins. Yeah.
Yeah. So most people don't do that. When they lift something, they lean forward, and the weight is far away from.
And that puts stress on the lower back.
Of course, it's gonna bam snap it. And another thing is the forward head posture. So you know those lap stands with the heavy bottom in the, you know, in the chemistry lab, you know, like a metal plate and then a rod.
I mean, I can imagine it.
Yeah, so you know, or you just take something like this, right? And just imagine this is really heavy, this plate, and then there's a rod coming up. And you turn that around, that's your head, right? Really heavy. Head's very heavy. I forgot, 30 pounds at least. And you know, if you just lean it slightly forward, boom. So all of that pressure is actually exalting. It hurts my back just thinking about it, exalting on your back.
Mm.
So when you have a forward head posture, it works on your lower back. And all of those things matter. So if you look at the human body, it's designed in an S curve from top to bottom.
Right.
So cervical, the kyphotic, lombardic, and the sacrum sticks out. Then it keeps going on. So the body is designed like a spring from top to bottom. And every impact and every action has to be balanced throughout the body. So that's the
Yeah.
name of the game.
I
If
mean,
you don't balance it out, you're gonna get stressed sooner or later, and it's got to show somewhere. There's a, you know, there's an accident waiting to happen.
yeah. I remember when we were younger, or when I was younger, we were playing a round of golf together, and you noticed that my right shoulder was lower than my left. And you had freaked out. You're like, "Oh, you have scoliosis." You thought it was because I was carrying the bag only on the right side. And
Well,
I don't think that's why, because I still have it to this day. And I did some like very like quick research on it, and I think what it is, maybe it was the cause of the cause it was the bag, but it's tightness in the chest here, like pulling the shoulder forward, and then weakness in the back to pull, like keeping the shoulder back, and that just, it's a complete imbalance. Like my right shoulder's like dropped, so I'm working on it,
no,
uh
but when your right shoulder is dropped, what happens to your spine, right? So when you basically, and that's a very common phenomenon that children who have to do heavy labor while they're growing, they're developing scoliosis, which is an S curve from the back of the spine, right? It's in a really bad misalignment, lateralism, not frontal or back. So it's a really bad idea to heavy lift when you're young. And if you're only doing, and it's actually a well-known phenomenon, kids who carry their books to school, which we used
right,
to do,
right.
and you carry them only on one side of your shoulder. It's really, so that's why I was making that comment. But if you take an X-ray trying to stand as straight as you can, and there's an S curve in your spine, period, you have scoliosis.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? I don't know. The body gets around a lot of different things. It's not necessarily a bad injury. Many people have it.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I'm still able to work around it and everything.
I mean, golf is a one-sided sport, and you have to make sure you're somewhat balancing out the rest of it. It depends on how much you do it, right? I mean, look, if you play twice a week, it doesn't really matter. But if you do it every single day for 10 hours, I mean, that's going to add up.
Yeah, I mean, you can also get a push cart or ride in a cart, or
Yep.
at the very least carry it on both sides of your back.
Yeah. So anyways, this is a common phenomenon that everything that we do has a reason, especially bunions and shoulder injuries, definitely low back. The knees are more a phenomenon of general inflammation, what we call, leaky joints now. So I mentioned before, leaky gut turns into leaky joints. So it's systemic. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, I don't know about the connection between leaky gut and leaky joints.
So leaky gut is what? I mean, it's basically your epithelial intestinal cells opening up because there's so much inflammation and there's no omega-3 to keep the membranes healthy, that they basically leak. And so there's a tight junction between the intestinal cells, and that junction starts opening up because the cells aren't functional, because they can't without omega-3, and because there's massive inflammation from overgrowth. So you don't digest your food, you don't digest your gluten, your carbohydrates, you're going to have massive overgrowth and the bacterial colonies of different species. And your immune system, since that's outside the body, right? The gut is outside the body, it's a tube, has to basically fight that. To some degree, it's trying to. Then the whole system fails and it leaks through the epithelial walls. And that's when it goes into your bloodstream. And that's what we call leaky gut. But it's not going to stay there. It's going to systemically travel through the whole body,
Hmm.
end up in your joints. And so that's why we talk about leaky joints and leaky teeth and leaky ears.
Leaky brain, blood-brain
Yeah.
barrier.
The blood-brain barrier is a phenomenon that still has to be understood how much inflammation really gets in there. But generally, this is a joint thing and pain resides on the muscles. But there's definitely might be a connection to dementia and mental disorders and basically any dysfunction like Parkinson's, you name it. So yeah, that definitely is a inflammatory component, which I also explain in my book to dementia and brain disease. But when we talk about leaky gut, it's definitely coming from the intestinal inflammation.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
yeah, anyways, I think we should call it a day here today and try to reduce our inflammation, right?
Yeah, very sciencey day. A lot of information from the doctor here.
I
But it's all good
definitely
stuff.
would love to talk more about what you have to say about staying healthy when you're young.
Hmm.
And then, I always say next time we talk about this and this, but when then we don't do it. But we had an interesting discussion on consciousness and time this week. So we should prepare for that for next week.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, we should really follow through on that. But I also disagree with you. I think you can weight lift properly, and it's not the worst thing for the human body. I think you can supplement and get more in shape than maybe our ancestors. Maybe not through running, but like in total functionality when it comes to being like a specimen. You could supplement and become more in shape than them.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do with the
Right.
weightlifting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, free weights, right? They're good for you because you won't overload yourself. But if
Well,
you're
I mean,
pushing,
that's like totally. I don't think you have enough weightlifting knowledge to be like saying that kind of stuff because like, you could grab 200-pound dumbbells and squat, and you'd be caught doing this, and you could squat past the point where your back can be flat, right? When your femur catches your pelvis and pulls it under, it's just where you talked about that injury earlier, and then be the same thing as the
no, you misunderstood. So, um, if you lift properly and if you're using free weights and arguably, dumbbell, that's all okay if you train yourself up to that level. What I was talking about, people lifting improperly all day long, even if it's just a handbag.
Mhm. Oh,
Um, and in the gym, I was talking about people pushing like these 300-pound machines, push their leg
le
pushes.
leg press, yeah.
Yeah. And they just grind down your hip. That body's not made for that. I mean, if you do a dumbbell deadlift, right? There's a lot of stuff happening in your core, suspending that kind of action, right? But when you're
Yeah.
sitting down and you're pressing against that machine, that suspension is gone.
Well, yeah,
But
I agree with you when you say that, and I always try to, when I'm in the gym, I try to focus on the things that are more functional, right? Like
yeah,
instead of doing the leg press, I'm gonna
yeah.
squat because that's gonna engage my core. I don't
I
deadlift
mean, what are
because
you really trying to achieve if you have these massive unfunctional quadriceps just so that they look good? You can't even run with them, right? And what are you going to do with this giant biceps that's just, a lot of times it just rips right off of this
yeah,
a bone insertion. You do a
that's so
muscle
uncommon.
is so strong that you do a pull up that it cannot possibly hold on to this muscle. And this is a very common injury. It just rips right off the bone.
I don't think it's that common. We should
Oh
look it
yeah.
up.
It's one of the number one injuries for weightlifters.
Okay, let me I can't because I'm recording. Well, I guess the world will never know. If you're listening, I don't think anyone's listening really this far in, but you should look it up because I see who's right. I don't think it's that common. I think the most common injury for weightlifters is probably something with like the to do with like the discs in the back, something down there.
All right, let's look it up for next time.
Okay. Yeah, I was just making note of it. So if anyone's listening,
I can only tell you that in my practice, CrossFit, for example, is the worst. I mean, these people get injured all the time.
yeah, I don't know. I've
But
never done it.
I completely agree with you. If you know what you're doing, you start early, you keep training your body, and you do a lot of functional and not so much muscle building.
Hmm.
Weightlifting is fantastic for your body, and keeping up that muscle growth is key to aging. Key to
Oh,
aging.
that's true. You did mention that before. So I guess like earlier when we were talking, you made it sound like an absolute like no one should be weightlifting at all for any reason. So
You know,
good that we clarified that.
there's always the same problem when people talk to me. I say water is poison, right? And
Yeah, that's
we go like,
crazy.
oh my God, what are you talking about, right? Of course, I say that to make you think, right? I mean, water isn't poison. So of course it's H2O, it's not poison. But drinking, 10 glasses of plain water with no minerals in it that goes nowhere, just swells up your stomach, is poison. It doesn't do anything. So you have to actually look at the scenario and have to actually figure out, why am I saying this?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Anyways,
All right.
it's just how I talk, and it's not often um, received well, but we are definitely. I'm hoping I'm still learning to communicate.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Over the
well, let's
years.
call it a day, and we'll
Okay.
talk about consciousness the next time.
Okay. All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.